Hi, my name is Brianna Valdez, and I'll be going over the effects of maltreatment on children. Maltreatment defined. Maltreatment includes all types of physical and/or emotional ill treatment, sexual abuse, neglect, negligence, and commercial or other exploitation which results in actual or potential harm to the child's health, survival, development, or dignity in the context of a relationship of responsibility, trust, or power. Child maltreatment is neglect and abuse of a child under the age of 18. Once they hit 18, it is no longer child maltreatment. There are four subcategories of maltreatment: physical abuse, sexual abuse, emotional abuse, and neglect, and we will touch on each one of those throughout this presentation. Subcategories defined. Physical abuse. Physical abuse is defined as any non-accidental physical injury to the child and can include striking, kicking, burning, or biting the child, or any action that results in physical impairment of the child, which means that what is stated is not the only way to physically abuse a child. Some effects of physical abuse on children is impaired capacity to enjoy life, hyperactivity, bizarre behavior, low self-esteem, learning problems in school, withdrawal, opposition, hypervigilance, compulsivity, and abnormal behavior. Sexual abuse. Child sexual assault is any sexual activity with a child where consent is not or cannot be given. Age of consent varies, but in New Mexico, the age of consent is 16 with no more than 4 years age difference. This means that if somebody is 16, they cannot consent to somebody who is over the age of 20, and so on and so on. 9 out of 10 children know their abusers, and some effects of child abuse is fear and or anxiety. Continued is depression, difficulties in school, inappropriate sexualized behavior, running away or delinquency. And inappropriate sexualized behavior is inappropriate touching, playing in inappropriate ways with dolls or other figures. And that can be present anytime during or after. Now we'll move on to emotional abuse. Emotional abuse is behavior, speech, and actions of parents, caregivers, or other significant figures in the child's life that have negative mental impact on the child. Some effects of emotional abuse is behavioral problems such as anxiety, aggressiveness, hostility, emotional disturbances, feeling unloved, unwanted, or unworthy, inappropriate social disturbances, negative view on the world, anxious attachment to parents, emotional abuse continued, effects such as fear or distrust, low self-esteem, feelings of withdrawal, lack of communication, self-destructive behavior, which is self-mutilation, depression, suicidal tendencies, and delinquency. The last one we will touch base on is neglect. Neglect is any recent act or failure to act on the part of a parent or caretaker which results in death, serious injuries, emotional harm, sexual abuse, or exploitation, or an act or failure to act which presents an imminent risk of serious harm. This means that if a child is out running in the street and the parents know this and it is a busy street, that this is now neglect because the parents are failing to act on keeping their child safe, which is keeping them out of the road, out of the way of traffic. Neglect is the lack of attention that the parents provide for the children as abuse of sexual abuse, physical abuse, or emotional abuse. The parents are very aware of the children. They are giving them or acknowledging them and paying attention to them, even though it is negative acknowledgement and they are not getting positive attention. This is still the opposite, as there is complete lack of paying attention to the child. So neglect is a lack of attention the parents provide for the child, so they are just not paying attention to them, and the child is missing that connection with their parents. Effect of neglect: deprivation or detachment, massive repression of feelings, which means that they are hiding their feelings and they are not expressing them. This is continued to impaired ability to empathize with others, so they are not able to understand others' feelings or see where others are coming from. Violence, delinquency, and decrease in general intellectual ability. And I believe this is one of the more common ones. And going back to sexual abuse, since 9 out of 10 children know their abusers, it is also that any child under the age of 12 is equally likely to be subject to sexual abuse, as once they pass age 12 and so on, girls are more likely than men to be sexually abused. But that is not to say that sexual abuse doesn't happen to men, and it is kind of hard to get a correct statistic on that, because boys and men are less likely to report being sexually abused because of the stigma that they are supposed to be brave, they are supposed to be strong, this shouldn't happen to them. So not as many are reported, so that might sway some statistics. Lastly, the reference page. I got all of this information that I have used in the slides from the Healing Power of Play and also the APSAC Handbook on Child Maltreatment. Thank you. Can you look up how I'm supposed to stop this? Yeah. Why am I such an idiot? There's not. Let me do home. Oh.